Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today we're going to be doing another Picking the Right Ship video, this time covering kind of touring or what's just kind of like sightseeing. There's a lot of people out there who really just want to go out and see all there is to see in the wonderful world of Star Citizen, and while any ship would really allow for you to do that, there are some ships out there that probably end up being kind of in the wrong category, or more specifically, aren't focused on this arena. For example, a Super Hornet is a fine ship, but mostly for kicking someone's ass with, not so much for really traveling around and just seeing stuff, because you lack range and cargo and some other factors. So with that in mind, I want to break down the categories that I think are important to consider when looking for the right touring ship. First off, I'm factoring in quantum travel time with stock components. Now, it's worth noting that quantum travel speed is actually tied to the component, not the ship, so you can always improve the speed by swapping out components. But there will be limits based on the size of ship. Like, for example, you can't just toss a large quantum drive into a medium ship. Another factor is going to be the range, which is going to be dictated by your quantum fuel tank size on that ship. And that's going to vary from ship to ship. Now, beyond those, we get into some other areas, like how nice the view is from the cockpit, if you have an ability to carry a ground vehicle, can you carry a bit of cargo or not, because you may find something that's worthwhile when you're touring that you want to bring back with you. If you have an option for a crew or not, what onboard facilities you have, like toilets and beds, and finally, cost and availability. So what I ended up doing was I took all the ships that are in the game right now, found some that I felt crossed off most of these bullets, and then put them into a spreadsheet, stack ranked them, and I gave my recommendations based on that. Now, before we get into any ships, Carrack. I know, it's an Explorer, it carries a rover, it has a med bay, it's great. It's not on my official list because it's not in the game as of today, thus I don't have numbers on it to go by. Now, if you're watching this video in the future, the ship is supposed to be available at some point here in February. If it is, great. It's going to do a great job for this purpose. It's a huge ship. It may be overkill for a single person or even a couple to go around and just see stuff, but it's extremely well-rounded and would be an excellent choice. So with that in mind, let's jump into the ships that I did include on the list, and I'm going to start with the ship that checks the most boxes, which is going to be the 890 Jump. Now, I know, you're probably saying, of course, Youngblood, it's a $900 luxury spaceship. It's going to be good at this. But it's not real accessible to most, which I think is a fairly obvious statement. But it does go without saying that the more that you spend, you're generally going to get a larger spaceship. And that is going to afford you more functionality. Hang tight. There's going to be plenty of other good options that I'm going to be covering in this. But looking back at the 890, it has the largest quantum range based on fuel size of any ship on this list. Strangely, the quantum speed is only fourth best because it has a civilian quantum drive. However, there's likely going to be more of those available in the future. Not today, but in the future. The cockpit view is great. You have observation decks, you have bars, you have unique angles to see. There's full suites that are available for your guests that have showers and bathrooms. Onboard facilities include things like a pool, a sauna, a bar, more stuff. So as you're traveling around, people can go and do other things on your ship. You have an ability to carry more ground vehicles than any other ship in the game at the moment, not to mention larger vehicles than any other ship, which is pretty clutch for exploring planetary bodies. You're also able to fit the biggest ship or vehicle right now being the Ballista, which is the only ship in the game that can do it. You also have a hangar on the top side that's designed for two 85Xs, or basically just a slew of other ships that you can fit in there. Additionally, you have a medical bay for fixing yourself up or for others, and the ship can now be selected as a respawn location, meaning that if you die, you can come right back into the ship, which saves a lot of hassle if you end up, coming to some unfortunate end. It has the ability, or should, to carry a lot of cargo. Right now it carries 32 SCU, but I think there is an issue with the cargo grid system because that number should end up being closer to 484. So you get a lot. But it's also not perfect. It's $890, which is a lot of money for a virtual spaceship, but additionally, it's not a good option for one or two people to fly. This is much more designed to be operated in a group based on the size of the ship, the number of stations, and the ability to leverage ships for fighter cover and exploration. On top of that, the ship is extremely limited and it's hard to buy, so the chances of actually landing one aren't great even if you can't afford it. It's a really good option to work towards in the verse eventually, but I think many are going to find this out of reach. It's a great ship, and technically the best at the moment, but there are others that I want to look at. Second up on this list is going to be the second offering from Origin, being the 600i Exploration variant specifically, which costs $475. It's another luxury vessel. It's large, but not a behemoth like the 890 is. Now, what you do get is the fifth best range on this list, and what I would consider a best-in-class view from the cockpit or the quarters beneath the ship. The conum speed is kind of average at 6th on the list, but that component can be upgraded since there's other Q drives available in the size range. The exploration variant of the 600 does sacrifice a little cargo, meaning that you can only hold 16 SCU, but it does hold something, and it also drops the additional seating and passenger spaces around the ship, but there's still plenty of those for you to use. What you get in exchange, though, is an ability to carry a full-size rover, which opens up planetary exploration for a variety of vehicles. There are plenty of seats for your crew, but you need far fewer than you do in the 890, as well as leveraging remote turrets and having some good weaponry. All of it really just means the 600 is really capable of defending yourself, and it has a significantly better flight model and is way less drifty than its big brother. The crew quarters on board are nice, though you don't have a medical or respawn ability that you have on the 890. Now, where we're going next is getting into some of the more mid-sized ships, and we're really going to look at the Constellation line, specifically with the Andromeda and the Aquila. The Andromeda is the better budget buy at $225, with the Aquila being $310, and overall the experience is very similar between the two. So I actually end up preferring the Andromeda a little bit. That being said, there are a few key differences, such as the Aquila having a rounded cockpit window, which is a better viewing experience, though frankly both of them have so many struts that give you kind of an average viewing experience at best. The other core difference is that the Aquila sacrifices the top weapons turret for a scanning station, so you are going to be less able to protect yourself, though that scanning station may make it easier for you to find things that you want to go see as part of your touring. Flight model, range, and quantum speed are all identical between the two. And both of these actually share the best on the list in range, though the quantum speed actually kind of sucks by default being second worst on the list. Which basically means that you can go a long way, but you're not going to get there very fast without upgrades. Now, as far as the vehicles are concerned, you can bring a full-size rover along if you don't mind sacrificing your cargo space. And when I say full-size rover, I generally mean something like an Ursa. But you can also do things like kind of carry a hybrid where you have smaller vehicles like a bike or a gray cat, and then you can carry a little bit of cargo. In addition, something that's not available today but will be in the future on these ships is the snub fighter that comes docked in the rear. What that means is that at some point in the future, you can end up deploying a P-52 or a P-72 to help protect your ship. But also, if you're really just sightseeing, you could use these to get on and off the planetary surfaces significantly faster, or you can get into dangerous areas in space with a smaller and more nimble vehicle without sacrificing the health of your larger, more expensive vehicle. The crew quarters on these ships are a little bit utilitarian. You do end up having beds, escape pods, a kitchen area, as well as the shower-toilet combo I lovingly refer to as the shoilet. It is worth noting that today, the Constellations are a little bit of a mess. They have shield holes, meaning that you take damage and lose parts very quickly, and the flight model is pretty wonky. Now, it's Chris Roberts' favorite ship, so it will be improved and it will be tweaked, but today it's just not in a great place. I still really like it. I think it's a good combat vessel at times, and it's an all-around, well-rounded ship, but today it just needs some help. Now, I didn't include the Phoenix on this because I don't think luxury necessarily dictates a sightseeing vessel. But if you want nicer crew quarters and you want a bar and you want a hot tub, then the Phoenix is a really good option. You know, it jumps the price up to $350. It does give you a point defense system, so you're a little bit better protected. And it makes it, but with that increase in price, it's also a significantly more limited vehicle. So it's just not really the same return on investment you get with the other two. A good sightseeing vessel, but I prefer the cost to what you get in return on the others. Up next on my stack rank list is the Freelancer line, with the highest rank being the Durer, followed by the Max, then the base Freelancer. And those prices are $125, $140, and $110 respectively, so you can see they're significantly more affordable than some of the other ships that we've already discussed. One of the main drivers for the Durer being the best out of these is that it actually shares the same range as the Constellations, and that's because you have additional external fuel tanks on board. And the Max and the base model don't have those equipped, and you cannot equip them later. The main difference is the base Freelancer is just the stock version of these ships. The Durer is equipped for range and scanning, and the Max is the kind of that big booty cargo hauler. We end up seeing that the base model carries 66 SCU, the Durer carries 36, and the Max carries 128 units of cargo, so it's significantly more. That bigger rear also means that it can carry ground vehicles more effectively than the other models, which does end up giving it an advantage. All of the space bikes, the Ranger motorcycle will eventually work, the Cyclones can fit, as well as actually getting a full-size rover in there because they ended up kind of removing that collision you have on the turret arms. All of them offer 4 seats in the cabin. You have 4 beds in the back. You have that toilet option, though at this size you do start to lose out on some of the amenities such as the kitchen and a table. The quantum speed for all of these is really just average, coming in at 6th on the list, so it travels relatively quick across systems, but it's not going to blow your mind. If you need to protect yourself, having 4 gimbaled size 3s and a turret means that it's a decent combat vessel, but it's not really the point of this video either. Where the Freelancers really struggle is with the view from the cockpit, with easily the worst view out of a ship on any ships on this list. It also ends up flying a little bit sluggish, so while it's not a pain to fly, it's just not as smooth as some of the smaller ones that we're going to talk about soon. Now, I generally prefer Freelancers over Cutlasses. However, the purpose of this video, really looking at sightseeing, the Drake Cutlass Black only costing $100 offers a lot to love when it comes to a sightseeing vessel. It actually beats the Freelancers in my mind. The Cutlass shares the same range as the non-dur Freelancers as well as quantum speed. The view from the cockpit's kind of average, but there are, struts that you need to look around. But when you get into the seat, it elevates you up and giving you a really nice vantage point, especially from the co-pilot seat in the cockpit. The cargo ability is 46 SCU, so it's lower than 2 of the Freelancers, but the layout inside makes it very usable. Actually, you're able to fit several Cyclones in the rear or several space bikes, with the only real limitation being that the full-size rovers are too tall to fit. Additionally, you also have 2 sliding doors that make the bikes have an easy way to get out and allows for easier parking, considering that when you try and rear strafe in a space bike, it's a little bit weird at times, so it just allows you to get out of the ship a little bit easier. There's quite a few seating options. You've got 2 seats in the cockpit, you've got a turret, as well as several drop seats in the rear of the ship. And again, you're not going to have the amenities for like super long flight, but you do have 2 beds and a weapon rack, so it can support logging out or storing some equipment. It's got really good weaponry on the ship, and it handles much better than the Freelancers, so it's just more fun to fly. Frankly, it's just a really well-rounded ship and one of the more versatile ships in the verse, and easily gets a recommendation from me on this list. Both the Freelancers and the Cutlass, though, I think are really your starting, or the kind of the top point if you're going to be doing the solo. Beyond this point on the list, though, we're going to drop down to ships that really range between $40 and $65 and include the Mustang Beta, the Origin 300, the Reliant Corail, the Avenger Titan, and the Anvil Pisces. Now, you may be surprised that I actually included the Reliant, because most of you probably know by now how much I actually dislike that ship, but for touring, I think it does a fine job. Additionally, CIG is aware that it needs some love, so it's now going to be getting an additional turret for more weapons, a bigger HP pool, and the wings are said to be more sturdy, so you're less likely to shear them off when they take damage. Now, I still don't love the Reliant, but that being said, it does have one of the best cockpit views in the game, with almost nothing obstructing your lines of sight. Now, on top of that, you can end up bringing a friend along with you with another seat in the cockpit. You can carry 6 SCU of cargo, or if you decide to use that space for something else, I'm fairly certain a Gray Cat would fit in there. However, it's been really hard finding a straight answer on that, or actually someone who just owns a Reliant is a challenge. So if any of you out there know, or you've put a Gray Cat in a Reliant and it works, just drop it in the comments and let me know. Now, it's a lower price ship at $65. But based on that semi-starter category assignment, you do have some lower performing stats, such as the worst range of any ship on this list, but it does end up making up for that a little bit with relatively fast quantum travel speed. You are also lacking the crew areas, such as a toilet or a bed, so it's less of a long hauler than some of the others. Now, if you look over at the Mustang Beta, that's another ship that's coming in at $40, and it offers one of the best crew quarters of any of the smaller single-seater craft. I kind of look at this ship as a mini RV, and while the quantum travel speed is okay, the range is on the lower end of this list too, so there will be more stopping for fuel. The cockpit in the Mustangs is going to give you great visibility. It also has a nice flight model, though durability and weaponry is very much lacking. Now, speaking of lacking, you also don't have cargo space or an ability to haul a ground vehicle, so you're missing out on some of the categories that I feel are valuable to consider in tourism gameplay. If we look at the newly reworked 300i, the price is at $55, and you get a ship that flies very well and has a very nice interior with good facilities, kind of some more luxury kind of feels to it. And it also includes the option to put some kitchen-type gadgets in the rear. You do have a skylight for your viewing pleasure, as well as some other nice perks. Now, it doesn't have much range, and it's very average on a small ship for quantum speeds, so I would highly recommend making some upgrades. It ends up matching the Avenger in the cargo space at 8 SCU. However, based on its cargo lift and the dimensions of the hold, I'm not sure if any ground vehicles would actually be able to fit, even once some of the clipping issues are resolved. Now, I'm curious if the Ranger motorcycle could end up fitting in there, but length and height are going to be a little bit of a TBD, so we'll just have to see. Between the 300 and the Beta, I would just kind of say decide on what's important to you. I personally prefer the higher quality of ship of the 300. It's more durable and more reliable, but it has a significantly different feel and does come in at a higher cost. Now, another ship that's a little bit newer that's worth considering here, though kind of maybe more as an honorable mention, is everybody's new favorite ship being the Anvil Pisces. The Pisces does have better range than some of these other single-seaters. The quantum speed isn't bad, and it does allow you to bring a second passenger along, as well as carry 4 SCU of cargo, all at $45. Now, you don't have the ability to bring a ground vehicle, and you don't have any onboard facilities, but for the price, it's at least worth considering. The last ship that I'm going to cover is the one I'm sure you've been waiting for me to cover, and that's the Avenger Titan. I know, at this point, you probably may as well be sponsored by Aegis for recommending the ship all the time, but it's just really versatile. Range and quantum speed are pretty low, so that's the big complaint about the ship. Not to mention the lack of amenities on the ship, though it does have a bed. But what you get is a ship that flies well, has a decent hit pool and combat ability, that has a cockpit with nice visibility, access through the cockpit or the rear of the ship, and an ability to carry space bikes or a Grey Cat. Or if you decide, you can end up carrying up to 8 SCU of cargo, all at $50, which gives it great value. Now, overall, any of the ships that I've covered here would really be a good option for being a space tourist in 3.8. But if I had to pick a few, I would say the 890 is the best in class, but at that price it had better be. And it also comes with a larger operating cost and crew requirement. Now past that, I like the Cutlass Black and the Avenger Titan as your mid and low range options. So that's basically it for this video. Hopefully that helped you if you're at a point where you just kind of want to go out and see the sights in 3.8. If you have questions or recommendations, please feel free to share. Otherwise, I appreciate you all watching. Stay tuned for more coming soon. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.